think flexibility is a key word of this session today.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not, we're not talking about, we're not talking about some crazy, insane performative facade or something. Like people usually, that's what they kind of think about when they think about, computational design. But in this case, we're processing a lot of data that would normally be a real pain to process, like by hand. And so the idea is that you still have a hand in everything, but at the same time, you're able to kind of move more quickly and have that flexibility that you talked about.
Welcome to Kit Crashing, where we explore landscape architecture, tools like 3D, parametric design, and AI. This season, I'm joined by guest host and landscape architect Ishaan Kumar. Ishaan brings the challenges, and I tackle them live, using computational design and my plugin, LandKit, to create better workflows.
Good morning, Ishaan.
Hey, Chris, good to see you
Hey,
again.
good to be here. How are you today?
I'm good. It's been a crazy week, but I'm looking forward to disconnecting and doing this again. It's a good
Yeah,
change of pace.
yeah, it's fun. And today we're going to talk about paving, right? You have a paving project to look at?
Yeah. Yeah, last week we did topo, and I think it'd be fun to cycle through the different the workflows. So, topo, paving. Next we could do planting.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, I'm gonna use my first phone of Ben, and this is a little premature because it's not like a big challenging thing, but I want to bring Ben in, who's going to be joining this season occasionally, and I'll invite him right now.
Sweet.
Uh, and I'm making the chat do a ring ring. Um, oh, there he is. Hi,
Hey,
Ben.
Ben.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Good to see you.
Good to see you all too.
Ben, we're gonna talk about paving today.
All right.
And he's gonna share a project, and I wanted you to hear about the project first, and then maybe talk for a sec about some of the ways that we would solve this using our workflows, which we haven't talked about too much. And then, but then I know you have to go because you're preparing for a session later. So, okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So, Ishan, take it away. Lay,
All
lay
right.
some challenges on us.
All right. So I'm going to share screen here. And so today we're going to talk about Pratt East Hall by SCAPE. And this is a general thing that I've been seeing in the profession where we're working on different alignments that paving layouts based on edges. And Scape does this where they have these different fields of paving aligning and doing different color mixes within them. And in more robust projects, they use that multi-directionality to even, it's not just one paving type, but different pavers, different scales, different textures. And this isn't anything that's new. A lot of firms do this to emphasize different alignments in their projects, whether it's benches or edges. Nelson Bird Waltz, similar, vein assemblage. And then within those paving areas, you can even, change the alignment and add in layers of, gradients, different tones, and really build a sense of place with these emphasizing directionality on a campus. And so the project I want to talk about today and discuss is Scape's Pratt East Hall Plaza. And what I really like about this project, it's a very simple concept. It's just, a couple of lines that are aligned to different elements in the project. So we have entrances, planters, and then you get your lines aligning, and it's always based on the longest edge. So there's a very practical rule to this where you want to minimize the number of cuts. So you find the longest edge and you take that. And then there's this custom paving pattern that's quite beautiful and very simple. It's just a rectangle that's been cut across with a specific angle. And the way I would normally do this is I would start in CAD. You guys know I have this architecture background. I work on a lot of documentation sets. And the way I would normally do this is I would bring in a sketch, I would hatch it, take the angle, try to figure it out, simplify it, set the origin point so that it starts somewhere, draw a box of the paver that I'm going to be using, and then try to scale up the hatch to match. And if it's a 2x2 paver, but this becomes extremely time consuming because then you have to do this to all the angles and simplify all those angles. And God forbid, you want to use a rectangle, then you're limited by the hatches that you have in AutoCAD, and you're not, that hatch isn't going to match the actual paver size dimension that you're probably using. And in terms of permeable pavers, where the gap is very specific, we're never drawing that. And so you can't sit, even if you rotate this without visualizing the gap, you can't make informed decisions on whether this line should move up or down if you're getting too thin of a sliver of a paver. And so I know that, the paving workflow is magical because you could iterate quickly, change the size of the paver, change the size of the gap.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, you're looking at a much, much easier approach here for paving, where you set those dimensions of the paver that you're working with, you set the size of that gap, you define the boundaries, each of these individual boundaries that you have here, and the magic kind of happens. And you have the pavers being trimmed to that edge automatically for you. And if you need to make any adjustments, it's automatically trimming out those pavers, maintaining those paver dimensions all at the same time while you're moving around these edges to make sure the angles match up, or even rotating each of these individual areas so that the alignments for each area is appropriate. And so the paving workflow really solves a lot of these problems quickly for you, and saves that time for you to be able to iterate through the design ideology, and really have a heavier hand on the design side as opposed to spending all that time doing this little nitty-gritty scaling. So yeah, the paving workflow and the paving tools in general really give you that flexibility to be able to cut out all of that busybody menial work that we're always doing with paving designs, and focus really on the part that matters most, which is producing an accurate result while also being able to experiment with that design and iterate through. So yeah, definitely encourage you to check that out, especially with sort of this type of project. The paving workflow really, really sings on this type of project for sure.
Sweet.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely requires, I think might require a little customization. So the neat thing, the workflows are really great for, you know, up to a certain point. And then if you're trying to customize something for a really particular setup, knowing how to do this in Grasshopper, which is most of what we talk about in the um, in kit crashing, is how to actually build these workflows. And of course, Ben knows how to do this. And but I did want to bring him in because he has a great familiarity with the paving workflows, which are easy for people to use. They don't have to know Grasshopper. That's the crazy thing. They just literally open these files, and then they're just changing parameters and just drawing geometries, and it's pretty straightforward. Um, and then that's a lot of what Ben is actually working on, is kind of like training people. And we have sessions that people are doing and all of that. Just trying not to make this an ad for all the stuff we're doing for people, but we definitely are doing a lot of things to help get people onboarded with that. So, but let's have a look. Ben, I know you're gonna bounce,
Yeah, I
and
got to bounce out of here. Got a session this afternoon. Lots of free workshops that we're offering. So take a look out for one of those paving ones and just join in and have a good time. But yeah, thank you so much for having me join, and it's really exciting. Can't wait to see a little bit more what you all do with the paving tools.
yeah, thanks for
Good
joining.
seeing you, Ben.
Yeah. Later.
Right.
Ciao.
Um, all right. So what's the challenge? Do you want me to work on Pratt East Hall?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
recreating, maybe, just starting with that image even, I would bring in that plan-like image into Rhino and just start
let's
tracing
do that.
areas.
Let's do that. Did you want to bring that back up?
Yeah,
This is probably
sure.
where I should have had it all ready to go. Um,
Let me go to the clean slide so that you could just grab a snippet.
awesome. I did grab like a zoom in of the closer shot. There we go. That's good. And we're of course we're not, just for our viewers, we're not trying to um, recreate this exactly, but
Yeah.
yeah. Um, somehow. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right, so I'm going to open Rhino and share my screen. Where did Rhino go? So I like to create a new model and I make sure that the units are in feet because most of the logic we have built in is feet. LandKit can be adaptive to different units, but I tend to think in terms of feet. So I'll close that, make this large. I'll drag this image in. This is our plaza, and I'm going to do it as a picture, just so everyone can see that. And then um, and then you define the first corner, and then you define another corner. And how big is it? That's the question. So if a person is about, let's just say this is 1.5 feet, 5. We're going to scale this down. And again, we're not trying to get, we're not super accurate here. We're just, okay. So I'll go full screen on the top view, and I'm just going to draw a few shapes. Now, a lot of times what people might do is they might hard line everything, right? Like draw this line, draw this line, draw that line, draw that line. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and um, I'm going to draw a plane. Oops, couldn't decide whether I was drawing a plane or a rectangle. So I'm going to draw a plane and, to kind of cover, say, one of these areas. And I think we're going to work. Let's just do this planes. Actually, we'll name it. We'll say running, and we'll put this on this layer, and then I'll make sure that's my current layer. And then I'm going to rotate this to match, and then I'm going to duplicate that. Now the thing is, there's different ways to deal with this. Like one way is to actually the pattern will follow the the actual surface. So if you use the surface as the input, that will work. But the problem we have here is not all of these follow the surface direction necessarily. Like this edge, um, we may need to trim it. So there's just a few tricky things here. So I'm just gonna rotate this to match the direction of the paving. There's other ways to adjust the direction of the paving, but for now we're gonna take this approach. And then this guy, I'm gonna do a line. I'm just gonna trim this edge. And also trim, delete. Okay, so this one is going to be creating the directionality going up and down. And then this one's going to be creating it doing this direction. And I actually may actually probably need to rotate it like that, make it bigger. I know this is a little confusing, but um, let me try to explain. So we're going to use what's called the collage tool. And first of all, the surface itself, like the actual surface coordinates, before we trim them, will drive what direction the paving goes to start. So we can control that using that directionality, at least as whatever the zero is, right? What's zero rotation? And so if I begin to build this, let's just have a quick look at what that is. I'm going to pull this up here so it doesn't overlap. And then I'll grab these shapes. We're going to open Grasshopper. So there's another way to do this, which is you just throw in all the shapes and then you can use a custom parameter that you change for each shape. And we have a tool for that as well, where you can actually adjust every single shape. And all you do there is you select it and then change the parameter. Let me pull up Grasshopper. Okay. So, so first of all, I want to bring those shapes in. So I'm going to create a layer pipeline, which we'd like to use. And I will say running, which is the layer that we had. And I look here, just I hover just to make sure that those shapes are coming in. And then from that, I'm going to create areas. Okay, so we can create areas using outlines, or we can create areas using surfaces. And in this case, the surface is really important because the directionality of that surface is going to be used here to determine the directionality of our paving. So
Is
now
that
that
the
I have the
benefit of using a plane versus a curve then,
yeah,
right? Because it
yeah.
has an innate information.
Yeah, and it's not always better to use a surface or a plane. And it's really any surface that's actually, I think, I'm trying to remember whether it's any surface or flat surfaces are probably the safest to use. Um, if we then um, do a collage, and this is a really important part of this whole thing. We say take these areas and flatten them, and
Hmm.
what that looks like is if I look here. I'm going to hide, well, let me hide this because this is confusing things a little bit. And let me put my image on a layer just so I can hide that too here and there. I'll hide that. If I look here, see what happened? It's kind of
Yeah.
hard to see, but see how that
Huh,
edge,
it's split.
it cut out the thing that was below, right? So we can similar to laying paper out on a plane and then what we see is what we get. Has a very similar quality, and that's why we call it collage. So,
And then I mean, with curves, it's easy to just turn points on and move the points out. With surfaces, how would you do that?
um,
Like,
yeah, it's a little tricky. So, one thing that we can do is let me just draw this line here. One thing we can do is use what's called solid point edit. But solid point edit in this case is going to change. Let me just trim this. There we go. And then I'll move this up to above both of these. Oops. It looks like it did not trim. There we go. Okay, so that's a really good question. How would let's say that this doesn't go far enough, or I need to move those points. There's a few ways to do that. I could say, if I'm not super worried about the directionality, which I am here, unfortunately, I can do a solid point edit. So I can say solid point on, and then I can move these points around. They change the boundary, but they also change the shape of the underlying surface coordinates, like the actual geometry that draws the surface. So if I were to say, you know, point on, why am I P on, oops, sorry, P on, there we go. You can see how the coordinates of that surface are still there. But if I do a solid point on and I move this, it doesn't always necessarily keep those coordinates in that in that same place. Like if I were to move this way way over here, it starts to shift those points around. So
Skewing it. I see.
yeah, it's hard to know what's going to happen. So in this case, I would trim and untrim those edges, right? So I could say, all right, I'm just going to retrim that edge of that thing. Um, so let's just do one more surface here. Uh, we're gonna copy this over here because there's this one other area, and then I'm going to rotate that, and then I'll trim that as well. Just so depending on the complexity, there's limitations to how flexible something is, right? And there's probably clever ways to set this up differently, but this is sort of the thing that came off of the top of my head. So I'll take this and move this above. It doesn't have to be above everything. It just needs to be above that piece there. Right. So they're stacked. And then when they collage, they'll be um,
Drawn flat.
yeah, so you can see now that these edges all follow this, but also the surfaces are following the correct direction for each of those, paving. Uh, yeah, they're following the direction of the paving. This one might be a little funky, but we get the idea. So now that I have them, I'm going to I'm going to apply those running bond, patterns to there, and then we'll approach this custom paving in a second. So from here, I'm going to go over to Grasshopper. The neat thing is that these areas coming out, they're all ready to go. And
Hmm.
we can just say, do a paving pattern. And we're basically adding a pattern to the area. I guess pattern, paving is not part of the name of the component. Um, the other way to look for components here is all the paving components are under pattern. And then, we have, of course, our planting and analysis and topo, which we talked about last week. We have creating things, we have areas, and then we have a number of kind of output or draw functions. So, I'll plug this in and watch what happens. We immediately have paving, right? Um, there's some limitations here. One limitation is that it automatically draws pavers that go beyond as a resource, right? And what we can do is say trim pavers
Against
to
those
area.
areas.
Yeah, and you can always tell because they're purple. And then we'll hide this, and now we can see that they have directionality to them. Another thing I like to do, and people probably do this in CAD as well, if you select this surface and go to its properties, we can look at the material, which is the paint tube, and I can change the transparency. When I bring it in as a picture, it doesn't give me that option. So all I do is I just change the pattern type here or the material type. I can custom is usually the one that I use, and then I can pull down the transparency so that I can see what's happening a little bit easier.
Hmm.
Now, the red here is kind of that's a grasshopper thing, so that's sort of the way that grasshopper handles, you know, that's the way it handles the color by default, but we can do a preview. And I have this Bake Plus preview that I like to use. Hide this. Oops. Not that we want to just, in this case, just preview the pavers.
Right.
And then, oops, we'll hide this. And oh, it's not liking that. I'm gonna share this, turn that back on. There we go. Okay. And I'll do white swatch using a swatch. All right. So now we can see that, the directionality, I think, might be swapped on a few of these, right?
Right.
And this might be an opportunity, and this is how flexible everything is, right? So this might be an opportunity to say, let's take each of these and customize the directionality of them. Um, so we can do custom parameters. I might get myself into hot water here. This is gonna be a fun segment of the show here as Chris gets into hot water. So we'll do a button, right? And we're gonna activate something, and I want some default parameters. So I'm gonna do
Angle.
what's that?
Angle.
Yeah, we're just gonna call it angle for now. And I just have that one parameter, so I don't need to do anything else with this. If I had multiple, I would want to change that this is wrapping, because otherwise I get a paragraph of stuff going in, or
Mm.
multiple paragraphs at once. So this actually doesn't have any outputs, and that's because it triggers something. So when I click on this, it's actually creating, based on this running layer, it's looking for stuff on that layer. So if I select this guy, oh, not the curve, the surface,
No
you have to
problem.
turn that layer back on. So when I select this guy, I might say, well, actually these need to run this way, right? So I'm gonna give it a 90-degree angle. And the rest of these don't have values. They're just blank for now. Um, let me do this. So then when I look here, what is coming out of my geometry when these things are being brought in? I have keys, which is the angle, and values, which is either nothing or it's 90,
Mm.
right? So now I have data associated with each shape that I can use and do things with. Um, One thing that I want to do is um, uh, doo, doo, doo. I'm trying to remember. See, the problem with the collage is that we have to associate that data
With
with
that
the thing,
mhm.
right?
1-to-1.
Yeah, one to one. So the collage kind of messes with that a tiny bit. Um, Trying to think of a clever way to solve this. This is the hot water I was talking about. So we have some ways of associating certain data to areas, and this is something I, might want to adjust in the future, is how to actually associate data here and then pull it out later. What we do have is the ability to take those surfaces and get the colors and the layer values and things like that. And that actually might be an interesting way to do this, is to say, because we're only doing one value, that I'm going to flatten this and I'm going to use the layer data column just because we're using one piece of data. And then later I can say get the area stats, right? And so after the collage, I can get the layer name, and it's the same, and I'll use that for my rotation. And I might want to do make sure it's a number that's coming out. So turn that into a number. Huh. Maybe it needs to be text first. There we go. A little bit of data management there. I think this is freaking out because some of these things can't be converted to a number because that it's not actually a number, right?
Right. There's no, it's
Um,
null.
yeah, but you want to run it through here so that it gives you the null, the actual null, right?
I see.
So now, and you see this little guy, he's still waiting for me to input other data. Um, and and probably the safe thing, but we can see that this has changed direction, right? But I can also just say 0, update that, and it changes, right? So
Or
I'll
click
do,
another one and change it as well.
yeah, exactly. So I'm gonna make this one 90. I think this one is good.
This one probably wants to go that way.
Which one? Yeah, yeah. So this one needs to be 90 as well. So that one's correct. And then this one, I think the angle was a little bit funky. So we might say, let's try 70 degrees. And we see that it's pretty close here. One thing we may want to do is actually measure that angle, right? So that's where we do get into a little bit of measuring here and there. But the nice thing is if I take this and I change it, it's
Right.
still going to rotate 70 degrees in relation to the thing that I had, right? So there's some preservation of data in that way, but maybe I pull this down to like 68. Oops, not 78, 68. And that gets us closer. For now, we'll say that that's close enough.
Align.
69 was maybe. Why is it not?
Ugh.
Sorry. There we go. Okay, that's even closer, and it's probably some really fractional degree. Okay, so we have the paving now, and but Chris, why does it have to go and make all this craziness? So what we're gonna do, what I mean is, why is it going way beyond the edge, right? So we're gonna create a polyline, and this is obviously not, you know, the real shape because we're in perspective. But if we, um, let me start that again. If we go here, and we could even do actually, let's do that. We'll do a collage with this shape. I'm going to take this and say, okay, this area is actually going to be shaped like this. And this is not carefully drafted, but we'll call this
Limit of work or something.
the clip. And then I'll go over here. Let me save these things. Call this paving. And then we'll save this. Call it paving. Just for now. We'll rename them later. Um, so we take the layer pipeline, we copy that, we change this to clip, and then the cool thing is that we can do a collage. Oh wait, sorry, it's actually a clip areas. And I'm going to lock for a second because I'm going to make sure this boundary is coming in, plug that in, plug this in. There's a lot of things I'm plugging in, and I like to lock it whenever I'm doing a lot of changes because I know that if I'm doing this and this, the data might mismatch, and I
Mhm.
don't want it to break for some reason. And it's a good, safe, common practice with Grasshopper, not necessarily LandKit. Um, so if I now hide these other ones, I want to see what it looks like after the clip, and you can see that it's clipping all of those um,
Amazing.
clips them out, right? So pretty fun. We're able to make those changes. And then let's do another fun thing, which is we're going to create an area layer called areas, and we're going to put running underneath areas. And this might break it. I'm not sure. But we want to do what we're going to do is here we're going to say, um, do I want to do this? So typically, if you want to bring in multiple areas at once and then deal with them that way, you can do that. But I'm not gonna take that approach. Um, we're gonna just keep these separate areas for now. And the reason for that is that it complicates everything. So I wasn't thinking.
Correct.
So we're gonna do green
For
and
plant bed.
what's that?
For the planting.
Yeah, yeah. Or let's be more sophisticated and call it, plant beds.
Planters. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we can do a polyline here and do that. And I'm intentionally going beyond the edge. I keep getting every time I select, it wants to know whether or not um that's funny. Why is it bringing in the plant beds? That is strange. I recently made some changes to the layer pipeline, and I might be running into a fun issue here. Um, so this is like the latest build of LandKit, so that's fun. Um, I'm not sure why it's bringing all four of those in. We had four areas, right? One, two, three, four. Why is it? Oh, it's because it's clipping with both of these. For some reason, it didn't update that change. Okay, there we go. So now it's not actually limiting that. And that's why I had it on the same layer. I'm realizing now. Okay, we're down the rabbit hole. Let's do it. Let's do it. Okay, so this area,
Has to
um,
get clipped.
it wants to be part of the clip, so it needs to be part of the
Right.
collage, right?
Right.
And I think that's why my immediate reaction was like, let's make these part of the areas. So clearly, I need more coffee. All right, so we're gonna do areas, and then we'll put the plant beds and the running in the areas. Hit save. We'll then take this, and instead of running, it's going to be areas.
Right. Dot dot.
Yeah, sort of two colons in order to show that this is a parent layer, and then we'll do a wild card. That's an asterisk there to say like anything under areas,
Ah,
use that.
nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So now it's going to be bringing in five shapes, but
Mm-hmm.
how do we know which ones to use? The challenge here is that um, we're using the layer, so we've kind of put ourselves in a difficult position with the layers. But let's just do layers for layers here for a second so that we can talk about how that works, and we'll we'll solve that other problem later. So what you can do is once you do all the collaging and the clipping, we have all this geometry coming in. And probably what's happening is this is just getting obliterated. So I'm going to move this above everything else.
Right.
Right. So now I have six shapes. But the cool thing is that I can say, coming out of here, I can say layer, sorry, area by name. Pull areas by name. So you pull the area, and then here we're going to do running.
Don't you have to do area dot dot?
Yeah, I think you're right. Areas. Yeah, you want the whole name. We used to have a more forgiving um, approach here, but we found that it created other sorts of problems. So this is better. So yeah, you plug that in, and the rotation is not. We're not going to be using this for a second. Um, I think we need to find another solution to that. But generally, you can see how the green is being, you know, removed now from that. So when we draw things on the green layer, and we can also, another trick that I like to do is use the C plane. So if I type C plane and I turn project off and I set my C plane to that green elevation, and then I say project, what's going to happen is it's going to project to that level. So when I do a polyline, it's now going to draw at
At
the
that plane.
level, yeah, of the, yeah.
And I
So
think here it makes sense that you've kept it a curve because here you want that flexibility of adjusting the
yeah,
points and it doesn't matter that it's a surface. And that's kind of the magic of the collage tool, I think, is that it gives you that flexibility of curve versus surface.
yeah, and we can adjust these things, right? Like we can shift them around, and that's the cool thing. It's
Ooh, one thing, point of
go ahead.
beginning, we'll get to that
Oh yeah,
later.
yeah. So point of beginning is pretty interesting. So we can say, let's just add some points. So let's say that we want, and we'll call this purple layer for POB. We're just going to add some points here. Um, I don't know where these start exactly, but let's do this one and this one. Okay, so we have one purple point within each of these. So now what I'll do is I'll say, layer pipeline. We're going to start pulling stuff in from the POB layer.
Mhm.
And I always like to check. So we have these 4 points. And now I just say POB here. What it does is it automatically finds the points associated with the proximity. And you can see how it snaps the pattern, like a corner of the pattern to the POB.
And I mean, it makes most logical sense to put that at these intersections and
Yeah. Yeah, we can
so
move
that
it.
you would, yeah.
Yeah, to an intersection for sure. Yeah. Um, oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, the other thing is you could just say, move this to here. And because it's finding the closest point, I don't need a point for every
You
single
don't need
thing.
the
So
other
it's
ones.
actually
Yeah, yeah,
it's actually going to
exactly.
use that one for all three. Yeah. And so there's, up to a certain level of design, this is great, right? There might be a point which you're drawing a detail that's super whatever, but this is going to look convincing enough for, through DD maybe, right? Like it's going to be
Yeah,
pretty,
a
pretty
hundred
great.
percent.
Um, and it's going to be stellar for early concept design, right? It's going to look really convincing. Um, cool. So that's that. I mean, sometimes it's just hard to see what we're coming up with. So let's just hide a few layers and see that we have some great, um, some great progress here. There's a couple things we can do to visualize this better, which is to do the layer, sorry, the
Oh,
bake
the actual,
plus
yeah, out.
preview. Yeah, and we can say when we pull those areas, what's remaining currently is the plant beds. And I'm actually gonna work down here for that. I can say I can say area. Trying to think. How do I want to do this? Because I'm just keeping everything flat now for now, I can say area stats. But we can also project these areas to topography. We can project pavers to topography. We can project the other areas to topography. But for now, because we're sort of conceptualizing this as flat, I'm just going to plug in the remaining areas, and then I can plug my geometry, layer, and color into that and hide this, and we see green. Hang on, why is this? I'm going to just hide all these, you know, yeah, there we go. So we have paving and we have planting. And it looks like, is it my clip? Oh, it looks like this is encroaching on that. So I'm just gonna say, just trim this out a little bit. Again, like all this little trimming,
Is
it's
gonna
because I'm on the
might
POV layer.
fuss with
There
the
we go.
yeah.
All that little all this little trimming, we're doing that. That's kind of a fiddly thing, but the reason we're doing that is in order to use the surface to kind of orient the pavers, right?
Right.
If I
Right.
took this, like I could take this now and I could shift it and change the actual orientation of the pavers by shifting the surface. Um, and there's something nice with paving and collage to do that. We've done things where we have whole big paving areas and we've taken all these shapes and we're like collaging all this paving, but it follows the shape, right? It actually is using the shape as as its syntax for where to start. And that's saved us a ton of time on
Enter,
the project.
entertain me on the, let's say I wanted to rotate, like what's important here is that to maintain these relationships as the areas change. So in this case, if this were to rotate, if this line, let me clear again. If we were to rotate this line this way, we would
Yeah.
have to grab those two surfaces and
Yeah.
they would rotate, but because the collage is dictating that, they would still maintain their relationship with that origin point. So I think just showing that live would be great.
Yeah. So if I take this, um, strangely, the way we've cut these out, this might be a little bit of an issue, but yeah, we can rotate this. So it does rotate both of them. Oh no, it works because this is
Yeah,
above.
yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
above.
I did notice one thing here. Like if I turn this off, you can see you just want to make sure that all these surfaces are at different levels. That's kind of an important element. Um, yeah, that help. Oh, and this one it doesn't go all the way, right? So we could
We
also
just
try
move
our
that.
luck here and say, all right, let's take this and let's just
Just move
scale
it.
it. Just scale from this corner and just scale it up. And that fills it in.
Faster. Yeah.
There is something happening here with these two areas. I'm not sure. Why are they competing? Oh, yeah, because one is actually, they're at the same level. So I want this one to be above that one. There we go. Um, yes. And I think part of what's happening is the C plane. So that C plane is something I actually don't do very often. Um, but I can do the world coordinates and the top, and it resets it. Oops, it resets it back to 0. Cool. All right, where are we at on time? We're about an hour in here.
We
Let's
haven't
look
talked
at
about
what's that?
sizing, the size, the gap.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so what's the paper size here? Just give me a paper
Let's
size.
say it's a 2 by 1. I don't know
Two
what
by
it is
one
by
foot
default.
feet. That
Yeah.
might not be fun because I think those are the default. So length 2 feet, width 1 foot.
All
So
right, let's say six. Let's do a skinny paver,
so the
6 by 18.
18, 1.5. So there's a few ways to do this. So I can just convert everything in my head, like, okay, how does that convert to feet from inches? Or the other nice thing that you can do is you can just say 6, and we'll say, width
Divide by two. Nice.
in inches, right? And then, yeah, divide by 12. Division. There we go. By 12. And it starts to get a little busy in there, but yeah, so we can do that. And like we did in the last episode, I can put this in my heads up. So I can say publish to remote panel, and now it's here in Grasshopper,
Mm.
in the Grasshopper panel. So I can say, oh, what does that 5 inches look like? I know this is very impractical, but it's elegant, right? So we could do 4 inches, and it's just updating live. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Just
And
thinking.
you could quickly export these out based on the manufacturer's dimension, and you're not held to an AutoCAD hatch, which is super limiting and doesn't have the proportions of the paver.
Yeah, yeah. So, but unfortunately, you always have to figure in your dimensions, right? So what we can do is we can say, you know, we can say 0.25 inches. That's 1/8 of an inch, divided by 12, so that we get that into feet. And now and what's nice about these relationships is they're persistent, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
we're not having to redo that math every time. So there's all
Mm-hmm.
kinds of, you can set up all kinds of persistent, you know, complicated stuff. And then we plug that into the seam, and now we have a 1/8 of an inch seam on all of our paving, right? So it's all updated. We can also, for visualization purposes, right now we're just taking the pavers straight out, but there's a few other steps that we can do. We can say, draw these pavers, and we can do a swatch, and I'll merge this into a list, and I can make
Oh, the multi-mix.
multiple colors. Well, I'm just going to do some random colors for now. And then instead of previewing the bound, well, we can preview both. We can preview the boundaries and the pavers. We want to do the pavers as a mesh.
Mesh, yeah,
So it's
surface.
just going to convert to a mesh. This is one of the steps that is a little slow sometimes. And then the
Because it's
colors,
processing so many individual.
right? It's turning all those curves into meshes, but it's pretty quick. So we say save, and then we go here, and we can see that we have a nice random. Sorry, I just hide a few things here. That we have a nice randomization of our color. We can add in other colors. And that's equal parts of each color. This might be nice
Mm-hmm.
just in the rendering software to apply like three different, like slightly different tones of a texture in order
Right.
to get a very convincing, layout. There's also ways of changing that texture using there's like this paver texture where if you plug this into here, it's going to give you textures that are all rotated randomly so that you get the actual like grain on the thing doesn't all repeat in the same way. And that's a pretty nice sophisticated feature. Um,
But you would need an image, like what's the base image?
So the
What is
image would
that
then be
as an
applied
input?
to each layer. So the neat thing about that is well, yeah, you'd basically just need an image for each of the textures on those layers. And if you're going to a software like Lumion or something, the key thing is that you've mapped a texture onto it, and then you can always swap out a different texture um, in Lumion, like get a more a more sophisticated texture in Lumion or Enscape or wherever you're working. But the key is to get a texture on there, and then it's at an angle that we've rotated it, and it is usable that way. So now we have something that's looking pretty real. And the cool thing is I can still take this and grab that point of beginning and say, well, this area probably should be a little smaller, right? And I can move it. And I can adjust these things live. Now, um, what's the other thing? The other thing is this area here, our custom paving. So let's turn that image back on. And um, let's do this. Let's grab one more area. We're going to call this Tess, which for tessellation. And we're going to make that kind of wild card color. And then I'll do a plane. And the interesting thing is it's automatically going to, treat that the way that the planting, you know, areas are treated. It's going to draw the color of it. And so I'll just save and go over here. And instead of what we're going to want to do here is pull, sometimes we have to expand our workspace. I just like to start to, cleanly move in that direction. We're going to take and we'll pull the test paver or areas out. And then we'll say whatever's
The name of
remaining.
that component?
What's that?
What was the name of that component?
It's called the pull areas by
All
name.
areas by name.
Yeah. And I'd be using bifocals, but I'm on a Mac, so I need bifocals is a cool tool that shows all the names of everything. Um, so we'll have to set something up for that for the next time. So now you can see it's not being included in this later step. That's because we're going to do pavers instead. And then so what's being pulled now is the tessellation. So how is this going to be different than this other one? Well, let's just start with all the stuff that we have so far. So we're going to have this general setup, and I'm going to copy that, but we're going to have different areas that we're using. So you can see immediately that it's doing the same paving, right? But we want something different. So instead of this thing will do standard patterns. So it will do the default is running bond, so we lucked out there. But it also does grid, hex, tri pattern, herringbone, radial. But unfortunately, it doesn't do this pattern. So I'm gonna bring in this other screenshot that I
The zoom in of the pattern.
yeah, did I just bring that in? That's weird. Here we go. Okay, apply. I'm confused. Let me try one more time here. Picture, apply. For some reason, it's not letting me do this. That's weird. Okay. Let's just look at the picture. Okay. All right, so the pattern is something like you said, it's a square and then it's been cut. Okay, I see. So what we're gonna do is I feel like something strange happened with this image. Huh, okay. So what we're gonna do is save and we're gonna draw a rectangle and we're just gonna do this really fast. We'll work on the red layer. No, actually, let's work on, yeah, we'll call this layer Tess Pattern or Tess Pattern. And I'll take this and change it. And then I'll make a plane, or I'll make a planar surface. And that fills a surface into my curve there. Now I can take this and draw a line,
And split
um,
it.
split it in half, and then we're also going to split it sort of this way, right? So we take this and we say split. We select those curves, hit return, and now we should have, I can delete the curves. We have these shapes, right? This would
Are
be
there
the
four
point.
or five?
What's that?
Did it split? No, no, you're right. You're right. No, I'm just getting
That's okay.
deceived by
Yeah,
the iso curves of the.
it's all good. So we'll take this, and right now the scale is probably not right, so I'll scale that as well. Something a little, I don't know, in under normal circumstances, we'd be measuring everything, but we don't need to do that here. So then we have the pattern, and we have the point at which this pattern is going to start, not the point, the point. So we have the origin point. Make sure it's in the corner. And then we have the point at which it's going to repeat this way. And then we have a point that's going to repeat in the other direction. And actually, I'm going to make this point, it's in relation to the origin. So it's sort of like it's going to move this way in relation to the origin and this way
Hmm.
in relation to the origin. So now that I have these, I'm gonna do this so that I can see both of these side by side. I'm Instead of this pattern,
Hmm.
I'm going to delete all this, and we're going to say tessellation pattern. We will need, I don't think we're not going to worry about point of beginning right now. We'll take the area that's pulled from
From the test.
the
What do you
test
mean?
one. Yep.
Yeah. Cold.
So, um, is this one correct? Yeah, okay. Sorry. Um, and then we have the geometry. So we'll say, I can just say geo and select this, select multiple geometries. And I'll just do one.
Wouldn't it be better to do it by the layer test pattern in case we change something?
Um, Maybe. In this case, because the pattern, we know what we want. Yeah, you could do it by layer. Yeah, you could do it by layer. Um,
Then
for
I would
sure.
just use layer pipeline, blah blah blah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I'm just gonna, for now, because I put these on all the same layer, just for our time, just for time's sake. Um, I'm not gonna do that. Set 1 point. So this is our origin, and we
Now
need,
you're setting the repeating, right?
yeah. So set 1 point, which will be like kind of the X direction,
Hmm.
and then set 1 point, which is the sort of the Y direction, and then we plug these in, and you can see that it kind of, what it does is it shows us the pattern repeat. It shows us the tessellation right in place of wherever that module is. But then it also takes that module and it deploys it in the what should be in the paving area. Um, let's let's do this. Let's make sure that we have. Does it need a point of beginning? Yeah, I think it needed a point of beginning to just anchor
Oh,
itself.
to fill out the whole
Yeah,
thing.
I think yeah. So now we can see that it follows that. Um, the cool thing is we can take this, and this little set of geometry can be anywhere, so we could kind of move it a little closer if we wanted. And then we can say scale this whole thing to be smaller. It adjusts everything. We could also scale in one dimensions,
1D, yeah.
right? And say, oh yeah, what if we cut it? What if we made these like more narrow? Oh, cool. Nice. So we can really begin
And
to
if
explore.
and
Yeah.
if
And
we
then
wanted it to start staggered, we would just move this point up.
yeah, yeah, exactly. If we want it to be kind of a running bond version of this, I think, if I'm not mistaken, yeah,
That
we can do that. Right.
aligns with
Yeah, that's kind of funky. The way
the
the edges
diagonal.
kind of they mismatch, right? And I'm beginning to change the color here as well. Um, and oops. Yeah. So it can starting to make it look like some sort of maybe a blue stone paver or something like that. And it's just great for visualization. Um, it doesn't have to be that cartoonish in terms of color. But sometimes I think when we're in this design phase, it makes more sense to be a little bit cartoonish. So I'm gonna just hide this whole thing. I know I like the pattern. Um, so yeah, so pretty fun. We can rotate this 90 degrees. We might say, oh, well, what does it look like the other way? So there's some affordances here with even though you're creating the pattern this way, you can rotate it a set amount. Um, and the other thing is that I can take this here. There's just so much flexibility, right, at this point. Like we
Hmm.
can take this and move it above everything and say, well, we need to move this line a little further up because of this alignment with the door or whatever it is. And now those things aren't, um, you know, it's just automatically doing it. Yeah. Do you have any other questions, Ishaan? Or like, do you want to see me, try anything else with this?
No, I think that was it. I
The
think
idea.
what's great about this, and I think this is just a good closing remark, is that, you could work on this and set up the rules from the beginning, and then as you know, your design direction changes, maybe you want to capture more water in these plant beds and the plant beds grow and
Yeah.
they're meeting some stormwater capacity or bioswales. You just change the shape of that and everything snaps to it. And you're just exporting these line work with the gap, with the paver size straight back into CAD, and it's going to be snapped to the same location that your base file was in, and you're just, it's going to be on the sheet file, and so it gives you a nice one-to-one transition. If you use the same layer structure, you have the same CTB settings to that layer in CAD, it's just going to print. So it makes it really efficient to design. And as you said, visualizing this, getting on the ground at any stage of the game and picking any view and saying, okay, is this right? What's this like in perspective is super easy because we tend
Right.
to think a lot just in plan. And this gives you the ability to quickly toggle in, get on the ground, put a person, get at eye level, and just feel it out. Like, is this too big? Is the scale too big? Is this area too big? Do I need to create a smaller area that's more intimate? And so I think that flexibility is really, really powerful,
Yeah.
and it gives you the time to study these things, which we often don't have. Like we're just using an AutoCAD hatch and then I've worked on projects where I'm specing a certain size of paver and it's not available in the lead time that I need, so I have to do a different pattern, a different size, and I just approve the submittal without really getting on the ground and saying, is that the right size? Is that the right point of beginning? So I think flexibility is a key word of this session today.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not, we're not talking about some crazy insane performative facade or something. Like people usually, that's what they kind of think about when they think about, computational design. But in this case, we're processing a lot of data that would normally be a real pain to process, like by hand. And so the idea is that you still have a hand in everything, but at the same time, you're able to kind of move more quickly and have that flexibility that you talked about. Yeah. I'm trying to see if um,
I
I can,
like your orange bench that you did there on the fly.
yeah. I'm not sure why this guy is not appearing. That's strange. Yeah, so yeah, I can also there's this other interesting tool which allows you to surface tools. There we go. We can shrink the I thought that was the problem. Apparently it's not. Okay. Anyway, so that's I guess what might actually be happening here is this might need to get refreshed. Is that it? No, that's weird. I don't know why this guy is not responsive. It's kind of strange.
You were adding another area?
Yeah, I was
Oh,
adding
trying
another
to show
area.
that.
It's a little odd. Anyway, we'll look into that. And yeah, hopefully this gives everybody a sense of how flexible things can get. And again, it doesn't have to be this crazy. You can just select different areas and apply different rotations manually, um, using the custom parameter tool, which could be a great way to do it. And maybe you're not using the collage. Maybe you know what your shapes are. So it really depends on the approach. Some people will go, this collage thing confuses the heck out of me. That's fine. Just draw some shapes, but they're still flexible. You can still move them around and you can adjust them in that way. So yeah.
Yeah, no, and I just want to add that, a lot of this stuff Ben covers in the session, the onboarding session, and we have our next one in at towards the end of May, the 28th. So feel free to sign up for that. And looking forward to the next episode with you, Chris. I think we should do planting next. We did
Yeah.
topo
Yeah, we're missing
paving.
planting. Yeah. So you have to come up with a fun challenge for me again.
You killed it today.
Thanks.